Welcome to the special preview of the Exceptional Advisor webinar series brought to you by the Investment and Wealth Monitor. I'm your host, Tony Davidow, Chair of the Editorial Advisory Board. Before turning the program over to Devin Ekberg, our Chief Learning Officer, let me preview the program for you. The Exceptional Advisor web series is a 60-minute bi-weekly program where we'll be bringing to you expert commentary and expert content from industry experts talking about such things as practice management, investment management, retirement management, and all things that are germane to you addressing the needs, wants, and desires of your clients. Similar to the Investment and Wealth Monitor in theory, it will be educational in nature, no product promotion, and it will hopefully be designed to help you better serve your client needs over the long run. We're taking this from the Investment and Wealth Monitor, and future programs will actually focus on some of the key topics we cover in the Monitor. The Monitor, again, is thematic in nature. We try to focus in on things that are happening in the industry that will help our members better address some of the challenges in the marketplace, better address some of the needs and desires of our clients, and address some of the changes and trends that we're seeing around us. Certainly, we live in an environment today where that's all plentiful. I'll get into it in a little bit here, but I would like to also use this opportunity to thank the Editorial Advisory Board for their input. They're constantly thinking about how do we best serve you? How do we best bring you the content that is germane and relevant for your practice? And they do a terrific job. And of course, we're led by Debbie Ekberg, the managing editor of the Monitor, who really does a fantastic job in pulling together all the resources, helping us curate something and deliver something that we believe is of great value to you. The content format will primarily focus on new research. And in fact, we're going to kick off our program next week with new research from Julie Littlechild. We'll also share economic and market outlook, leveraging experts like Jonathan Golub. And then we'll also have panel experts bringing industry perspective on how we should be responding to this challenging environment that we're living in. And that, in fact, will be a program done with Scott Welsh, Todd Wagenberg, and Brian Alsberger, all board members of the Investment and Wealth Institute. And we're going to talk to them about how we should be communicating to our clients, how we should be positioning portfolios, and how we address the challenging environment around us. We'll also have interviews with academics and thought leaders, and we'll focus on things like best practices. Today's program is a preview, but in the future, we want to make sure these sessions are interactive, so they'll all be designed to engage you, give you the opportunities to ask questions directly of all of our experts. To give you a little bit of a preview of some of the topics covered, we're going to focus on investment management, the CIMA curriculum. We're going to focus on wealth management, the CPWA curriculum. We're going to focus on retirement management and practice management. And of course, very important in today's environment, and something Devin's going to talk about in just a little bit here, behavioral finance. How do we help our clients in these very challenging and emotional environments make the best informed decisions as opposed to acting on their emotional impulses? So I think these topics will be very germane to you. And as we go through this, we'll try to call out unique research and specific points of view on each one of these areas to bring to light some of the areas of focus of the Investment and Wealth Institute and some of the areas of study that you've already been focused on. With that, let me turn it over to Devin, and at the end of the program, I'll talk to you just a little bit about some of the upcoming speakers and the programs that we've identified. But Devin, as we were talking about this program, one of the things we wanted to make sure we addressed is what are some of the financial implications? We live in an uncharted territory here, this COVID-19 world, this coronavirus world. How do we help our advisors respond to this ever-changing environment? I know you've got some terrific research for us. So let me turn it over to Devin Ekberg, the Chief Learning Officer of the Investment and Wealth Institute. Devin, welcome.
Thank you, Tony. And by the way, for the record, let me tell you how excited I am that you're going to be hosting this series for us, because I can't think of anybody that's more thoughtful, more smart when it comes to the topics that we're going to be addressing in this series. And the way that you've worked with the Investments and Wealth Institute over the years and with our editorial advisory board, I think that you've added tremendous value to our membership, and I'm just very excited that you're with us to do this. And You're
Thank you so
absolutely right. I mean, we're living through an extraordinary, historic period. It's really something that we'll probably be telling our grandchildren about someday. The behavioral ramifications of this are going to ripple probably for a full generation or more. And so it's a really interesting time. And for advisors and consultants out there, it's a really fabulous time, I think, to differentiate yourself as an advisor and really add a tremendous amount of value to the client advisor relationship. And you mentioned our certifications, SEMA, for instance, and all of the curriculum really tries to help you make sense of not only the technical kind of financial aspect of what's going on, but also the behavioral aspects that are going on. So I have a few things that I want to kind of say in that regard. In terms of some of the behavioral concepts that we're seeing being played out in real time here. And the biggest key for me is that in normal times, when you can sort of anticipate the long-term returns of various assets and construct a portfolio, and you really sort of go with the traditional finance framework. That works, and it works really well, but there are times that framework is just somewhat limited. It's not wrong, it's just it sometimes is incomplete because it's not taking into account some of the extraneous factors that we're experiencing right now. So the crisis that we're actually experiencing today is actually less technical and really more behavioral. Now, I don't want to downplay the virus. The virus itself is a huge issue, and how humans are reacting to it I definitely don't want to downplay that. But we have to adapt and we have to proceed somehow. And the problem is that investors, they crave certainty, right? They desire this certainty. And so when we're in an environment like we're in right now that's highly dynamic, we do have to adapt to some of those changing market conditions. And so all of those things, an advisor sort of needs to understand how their clients are reacting to what's going on, and they need to be able to have some, I think, a researched, validated framework to work with some of the behavioral aspects that are going on right now. So I kind of mentioned that the long-term returns of various assets are fairly predictable, but at times that relationship breaks up. There are windows of opportunity, I think, that advisors can add extraordinary value, and basically that is all motivated by that fear. So as a very quick sort of overview, kind of a short history of the brain, what really drives that fear is the part of the brain that evolved first, the brain stem. Some people kind of call that the reptilian part of the brain, right? And that's what really kind of drives the fear and the greed, and it's not a conscious response. It's literally built into the nervous system. It's what kept reptiles alive when we were evolving. So it's very, very hard to overcome. The parts of the brain that we're more familiar with that sort of regulates, what it means to be a human, right? The limbic system, which is more of a mammal part of the brain. That's what really kind of distinguishes what your preferences are. Like, I like to eat this, I don't like to eat that. I like to be in a warm spot, not in a cold spot. That stuff evolved hundreds of thousands of years after the reptilian part of the brain. And then even worse, the prefrontal cortex, what really distinguishes you and I as being a human, that really evolved 100,000 years later. And so these different parts of the brain are evolved to keep us alive, but they're not really evolved to handle and deal with the situation where we're in right now, with all this fear, the financial markets reacting and so forth. We need to find ways to combat that. And to the degree that you can combat those differences in how your brain reacts to this, you're going to end up being a better investor, a better leader, a better handled and better equipped to deal with a financial crisis like this. So one of the things that I like to teach at times in some of the curriculum, like our CPWA curriculum, is how do you actually deal with fear? There's actually a lot of good research out there. In fact, the researchers that found the amygdala, which is the part of your brainstem that reacts to that fear and greed. They actually developed a response to it. They call it the relaxation response. So you can literally control your breathing, you can control your heart rate, you can control your blood pressure. You know, even the things like that you see, you know, in social media today, and of how to deal with some of these things like yoga and Tai Chi and mindfulness. All of those things actually do help, and there's a real connection to your brain on how to deal with fear through your body response. And so I kind of put some resources up here for those people that are really struggling with that right now. The Benson Henry Institute is developing clinical research on how to actually use mindfulness to treat things like anxiety and depression. And I think it's extremely important. In fact, there's actually there's actually clinical research that they're using to treat neurofibromatosis through this kind of body mindfulness. And so this might be a little bit outside of the curriculum, admittedly, but I think it's super important. And I think some of these elements you can use as an advisor as you're dealing with your clients. If you can perceive that your clients are reacting from a fear perspective instead of a confidence perspective, an advisor can really use some of these things here. And I think the reason people are so afraid and so sort of triggered by what's going on right now is this has been a very quick decline in the financial markets. I mean, everyone listening to this video has observed what's been going on in the financial markets. It just happened so quickly. And if their clients are feeling disoriented, it's because it's very disorienting. There's nothing wrong with that client. They're experiencing it and it's real for them. But we have an opportunity to add some value. So the question then becomes, well, what do we do now? What can we do? And, you know, I think in the short term, there's a lot of things that we can do. First, just acknowledge that this is just gonna suck, frankly. And I can use that because I watched a video by Andy Lowe. He's a friend of the Institute, and he's been known a lot for his adaptive market hypothesis and a lot of research around that. And he basically said it that way too. It's like, this is going to suck. And you know, to the degree that we can acknowledge that and help our clients acknowledge that, I think that's super helpful. The other thing is really to focus on facts. There's a lot of fear-based commentary that's going on right now, and that's what I'm actually really excited about this series. Is that we will be focusing on research and validated concepts and facts, not really responding to the fear that's going on out there, because I think people make worse decisions based on fear. And so focusing on those facts, I think, are extremely important. And the advisors that I think will thrive in this particular environment are the ones that are behaviorally minded, the ones that are acknowledging what their clients are experiencing, developing a framework for them to overcome that, and at the same time adding just an extreme amount of value in the consulting process. And you know, the things that I'm hearing from clients right now is that they need reassurance, they need that communication. And so whatever you think your normal communication levels are under, you know, sort of normal circumstances, you ought to be increasing that communication to those clients in some way. Doesn't have to be super complicated, but just the volume of communication just needs to go up so that people know you're there, that you understand what's going on, you understand what their situation is, and that you have them sort of in your mind. And that can help them kind of sleep better at night. The other thing is you just got to take care of yourself and take care of others. And you know, I'm very optimistic, and let me tell you why. Because you know, the virus and what we're going through right now is extraordinary. But at the same time, if you think about it, it's the first time in history that we've had the smartest people in the world working on the same problem at the same time, and they have an opportunity to communicate with each other. And so what I'm seeing in some of these stories of some of these researchers and doctors and healthcare workers and frontline people all working together, it gives me that feeling that we've got this, we've got it under control. The source of the panic is known, and we know what we need to do to overcome it. There's plenty of uncertainty of what comes next, but those things that we can count on, I think I'm just kind of very, very optimistic there. Long term, I would expect that there's strong economic growth when we're able to restart the country. I think in the next few episodes, I think Tony, you'll be talking about more of the technical aspects of how this actually happens. But I think the economic growth and performance engines are still in place. There will be some changes, no doubts about it. There will be winners and losers and certain industries and other things like that don't make it, and some that do. I'm anticipating a faster pace of technological changes. That's what we're really known for as humans, is engineering our way out of problems, right? And I'm super optimistic when it comes to engineering ourselves out of this particular problem. I think some elements of financial planning will change, especially when it comes to retirees and long-term financial planning. I think you'll see lots of opportunities there in terms of preparing for another type of shock like we're experiencing today. And frankly, I think there's going to be some new career opportunities for those in the financial industry that have been in the business for a long time. I think there are some opportunities to develop some niche offerings and leadership in some areas. And for those that are new to the business, I think educating yourself and developing that skill set is a great opportunity right now. So I'm very optimistic in terms of the long-term opportunity set that we have. In the short term, like I said, just remember that it's going to suck for everybody, but it's really an opportunity to demonstrate leadership and demonstrate your character and demonstrate real value to clients.
Yeah, Devin, some great points there. And some of it seems so basic to us, but again, I would amplify a couple of the points. One is our clients haven't been through this. Our clients right now, they're dealing with a lot of emotion. How will this end? What are we going to do? What is the world going to look like kind of in a post-pandemic world? And I agree with you, you can't over-communicate in this environment. I'd also amplify the point which was kind of built into everything that you talked about here, which is the value of an advisor is they're a behavioral coach for their clients. They're helping them to make informed decisions rather than emotional decisions. And in some respects, they're protecting clients from themselves, because left to the emotions, clients will often make the wrong decision at the wrong time for the wrong reason. And the temptation in an environment like this, the temptation is to get out of the market and to sit on the sidelines. When in fact, maybe what we need to do is kind of go back to basics and say, what are we solving for? What's our plan? Do we need to make adjustments to the plan? Probably. But let's not throw away all the work that we built in developing a right strategy for each one of the underlying clients. So great points. I think it's something we're going to try to build on in future sessions here. I did want to preview a couple of the upcoming sessions. So we've got the next couple months kind of lined up for us, and you and I were both very excited about the fact that Julie Littlechild is actually going to preview some proprietary research that she's done in looking at how advisors are adapting to the COVID-19 virus. And I think that's great. And you and I have seen the preview of some of that research. It's very exciting. I think it will really help advisors think through what it means to them, and more importantly, how is it that they should be engaging their clients in this challenging environment. I'm very excited that we'll be following up with that with an investment insight market volatility Q&A. We're not going to have slides. We want to have it more engaging, and we're going to leverage 3 of our board members and really great investors in Scott Welsh, who's the CIO of Wisdom Tree, Todd Wagenberg, who has a institutional practice, and we're going to learn how he's dealing with his institutional clients, and Brian Olsberger, who deals with many high net worth clients. So we'll get from them a sense of how they're communicating, how they might be positioning portfolios. Are they in fact thinking about tactical adjustments along the way? Jonathan Golub will provide great insights for us in investing in a post-pandemic world. He's not going to provide the precision of what's going to happen tomorrow, but a longer view of how we should start to think about this new world order. And I appreciate your comments about it will be different, and we as human beings will adapt to that. And in fact, I think there will be some great opportunities coming out of this. I'm very excited that TP Enders will actually share some research that he's done on this whole active versus passive sort of discussion about a pragmatic approach to selecting the right and appropriate investment vehicles. It's actually an article that appears in this month's edition of the Investment and Wealth Monitor. It's really a terrific piece, and we wanted to leverage his insights in bringing that to fore. And then I'm thrilled to have Bob Howell. Bob is known as Mr. Retirement, and we wanted to really dig in and rethink retirement. Do we need to think about different sort of assumptions? We certainly live in a very different market environment from a risk and return perspective, but also from an income perspective. Might we need to rethink about what our models look like, and not only getting our clients to retirement, but how do we get them through retirement? How do they live quality lives through retirement? And Bob and I will have a pretty engaging discussion on that. And then we'll try to ramp it up a little bit and get into more technical sort of discussions. And Arun Mahaldar is sharing some new research that he's introducing and will also be publishing in a future edition of the Investment and Wealth Monitor. And he's asking us, is this the time to examine a new investment approach? And I think it's very timely. There's very interesting sort of perspectives that he brings in there. And again, that's just the next couple months. We'll continue to build on that throughout the year. We'll try to respond to the market environment that we're seeing around us, as well as leverage the great content that we've been publishing in the Monitor over time. So very excited as we move forward here. But Devin, I did want to come back and ask you a question, because I know the Institute has really done some tremendous work in trying to marshal resources, not just putting this program together, but for advisors who are having a difficult time. You talked about behavioral finance. Are there other resources that they should be taking advantage of, and where might they find that?
Yeah, that's a great point, Tony. The Institute has really found it important to be responsive in this particular time, but again, in the right way. I can't emphasize enough that the news right now is difficult, and the business model of the news organizations and media organization is really to focus on kind of the day-to-day, week-to-week movements and in the markets, and it's really tough to not get overwhelmed by what you're hearing in the news media today. So what we've tried to do is put together resources that are really more education focused. Market education, not necessarily market commentary. So we've put together what we call the Turbulent Times Toolkit. It's available on our website, and it's a collection of education. And as you mentioned, it's behaviorally oriented. So we've got an entire course that was developed by Dan Ariely and Duke University around the behavioral approach to delivering advice. So there's an entire online course that you can take advantage of. We've got several recordings from some of our in-person conferences and our online education offerings that are behaviorally oriented things. And again, I can't stress enough, but they're actual frameworks that you can use to develop a strategy, a behaviorally adjusted strategy for clients. And so having something that's repeatable and actionable and easy to understand and easy to communicate to clients is extremely important. And so we've put together this collection of content that we think is extremely valuable. And so we'd encourage you to check out the Turbulent Times Toolkit for some of those additional resources there. Plus, we've instituted this new lineup of webinars. We also have a series of podcasts that will be interviewing, various advisors and how they're actually dealing with this crisis with their clients, and kind of almost taking a case study type point of view on some of those podcasts. So make sure that you're checking out some of this new content that's coming from the Institute. I think it's super valuable.
Thank you, Devin. And again, I'll just amplify for everyone. It's so important in this environment. Let us know how we can help. Reach out to us if there are topics that you'd want to cover in the webinar series. Devin mentioned the podcasts, which I think are terrific because they're very timely, they're very quick, and they're very short. Some of the content that we've been producing, and I've been blogging myself, really came from feedback that we were getting from all of you. So again, let us Let us hear what you think is relevant for your practice. It might be something that finds its way to the Investment and Wealth Monitor, or it may be delivered in one of these other mediums. Devin, I'm so excited to work on this with you. I think this is very timely. And as you pointed out earlier, as we think about this post-pandemic world, I suspect mediums like this will be used a lot more than they have been in the past. And I'm just thrilled to be part of it with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate all of your hard work and your enthusiasm and your dedication to this industry. It's fantastic.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone. We look forward to having you join us on future webinar series. Thanks so much, and be safe, everyone.